Some of you may be so good that you feel it instantly. But when you're working in a group, you will find that your abilities are temporarily amplified if the group field is clear and if you're working with D12 frequency. Everybody is helping to bring more little bursts of D12 into the room that's helping everybody else next to them. One of the things that we get so tired from, if you wonder why we kind of run off and disappear for a while after we've been up here, even when I'm doing all the talking and my frequency is coming out my mouth, we're both transmitting frequency. We're holding a field that helps in the learning process, that'll help you guys to whatever processes you run. It's helping you to absorb the information right now. And by the time we get done, we are so tired. We would have been tired if we just stood here and smiled at you and didn't say anything, because we're running frequency. After a while, you'll know it when you're running frequency. And you'll know it especially right after you stop. Because you climb up and you almost notice you don't really notice you got up into a higher frequency space, or you're actually running current. But when you notice it is when you stop and you go back to what you had before you started running amplified current. You start getting this like droopy, tired feeling, and you might feel like your knees have swelled out to about here, and your feet hurt. I get it in my lower half all the time, and it's just the body is getting used to it. You can blow your frequencies open and run the frequency. But it's like exercising too much. For one day, did you ever go like out and jog 5 miles after you haven't even ran for like 20 years? Day 1 after the fact, you're going, ow. Day 2, you're going, oh. And day 3, you're like this. You're in atrophy because the muscles were not used to that much energy running through them. Well, the same thing happens when you begin to run frequency, and it seems to be the legs and like the lower part of the body, which is key to the lower strands and the lower chakras, that has the hardest time adjusting. So at first, if you don't feel like you're running something, keep doing it. Eventually you will feel those currents. You need to build a critical mass. If you happen to be one of the lucky ones and you get to start feeling it as soon as we start running the exercises, as soon as we learn how to run current, and you actually go, wow, yeah, I'm feeling it, cool. That's good. That shows you have some strand activation that is a little bit advanced compared to people who can't. That doesn't mean anybody's better than anybody else. It may mean that the person next to you that can't feel anything today is going to run loops around you by the end of the week. It doesn't matter. It's not a competition. Okay? So I want you to know that and know what to expect when we start to run frequency. There's a lot of different effects. It's not something that's going to hurt you. The only 2 things that seem to make people kind of go, most is, one, I can't feel anything. Another is, I can't see anything yet. It's like I close my eyes and I try to visualize, and I'm really concentrating on visualizing, but I'm not seeing anything. The first thing you'll start to see when you visualize is nothing. You will see what I call see-feel. This is where it starts. See-feel, where you imagine something. Some of you'll be amazed. You'll find out, wow, I have a talent for actually creating inner light patterns where you can see them quickly. That comes with 6-strand subharmonic activation. If you don't happen to have that right now, you might have gone into 8-strand subharmonic activation, but you're not using the 6th one right now, so you have it turned off, which means you're not going to get pretty pictures when you close your eyes and try to put an image there. You may see a field of darkness, literally. But what you are doing, even if you can't see it yet, you are putting a pattern of light and sound there. If we're going to visualize a Hierophant symbol on the back of your forehead, inside your head, imagine it there even if you don't see light. It doesn't matter because you're still setting the mathematical code by the intention. Trace it in your mind as if you could see it. Imagine it there. Try to feel it there. Imagine you're in the dark. Okay, I can't see, but I know it's there. Try to feel its energy, because it is there with the intention that you're going to create it. With looking at what a Hierophant symbol is, you've already started to put it there. Optical pineal induction. Just by looking at something, you're sending its mathematical code into your body. It's really scary when you think about watching television. Okay, so we're going to use the Hierophant symbol to activate the Maharic shield to begin getting D12 frequency running through the body, and we're going to open the planetary biofeed interface system. With most people, this isn't open yet, and it hasn't been open for thousands and thousands of years. This is the first time that the grids have been able to do a D12 activation, and this is what's required to begin the planetary biofeed interface system opening fully. Okay, can we go to the next page, please? I'm going to take a sip of ink. Yeah. That's page
5-7.
Yeah. Lower page 57?
Yeah.
How did we jump? Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah. If you're wondering why before we were on page 100 and something and now we're on page 57, it's because the second series of numbers that go on the top upper right-hand page of the page, they go with the presentation milars. Okay, so some of them we're actually pulling from before and after, so they're from the sequence is different. So it's not a mistake. It's just the fact that some of them we're using the upper corner numbers. So we'll just tell you the bottom page numbers because it's easier to find them in your text that way. Yes. $5:30. Okay, well, I'd like to, let's see. The next page is, yeah, I'm thinking we can run this. Oh, shoot. How far until we get to exercise 1?
What, this is the
Good Lord.
mental.
Yeah. Yeah, oh my God.
All the way back here. It's page 100 or something.
Oh, amen. Okay. Yeah, he was just reminding me, say, if we're going to take that break anywhere around 6 o'clock, he's saying 5:30 might be a good time when we go right back into it. It's a 15-minute, so we'll go for 15 more minutes, then take a 15-minute breather, and then come back. Okay?
Page 117.
It's 117. Okay. Well, we're going to run both of these tonight, which means I've got to flip through fast.
Well, we can take them out.
Let me see. Okay, I want to show them that and this together. Okay. Yeah, I'll show them that for a minute. Okay. All right, this diagram here, the one that's on page 57 in your text, yes? That is the beginning of using the Hierophant symbol code. Now, as we progress in Kathara healing and also in running the Maharata current, this flat symbol, after a while, and you have to start it as a flat symbol code. That means one thing mathematically. If you make that a three-dimensional star, you've changed the mathematical input. It means something else. We have learned to progress where we start with this to begin the activation of the Maharic shield. But then we progress. The first thing was up to a three-dimensional six-pointed star, Merkaba star. From there, we started doing stars with more points because each one was bringing more of the Maharic shield into activation. We got up to, I don't even remember what the last one was, 17,000 something or other star points, which at that point you're envisioning a little ball of light with lots of spines on it, and you're telling it how many spines are there because there's no way you're going to count them all. Okay? So this is the beginning. If you don't use the Hierophant symbol code in its flat two-dimensional form, it's not going to activate the grounding portions of the Maharic shield that's going to allow the current to come through. So you start with this. Once your body gets used to running the current, then you can go up to increasing how much frequency you can pull with the same exercise. So in the beginning, you use the flat the flat six-pointed star. After you run the Maharic shield exercises for a while, start to play with it. Ask your higher self, your avatar self, for a feel on a number. What number should I use? Should I use just a three-dimensional star, six-pointed? Maybe a three-dimensional 12-pointed? Maybe a three-dimensional 2,000-pointed? What's good for me? You'll start to get feedback. You'll get a feel for how many numbers you should put on that star. And if you realize that the more you use the Hierophant symbol, the more you run a Maharic seal activation, the more D12 frequency you are progressively building in the body. You're building the body's ability to hold it for longer periods, which means you're building the body's ability to hold it in the DNA, to hold the DNA active and open for longer periods. You're also increasing your ability to transmit. If you want to be able to facilitate healing in others, you have to be able to hold the current yourself first before you can transmit it very well. So, when you start with the Hierophant symbol in the exercises that we're going to run tonight, you can even play with it now. When you start with this, that will be the activation. But as you go, try to increase the star a little and almost like run another quick one down and see if it'll amplify your current, because it should. There will be currents amplifying. The first current we're going to open is the Maharic current that comes from the Maharic shield, which is below your feet. It'll run a pale silver stream of energy from the Earth's core through your Maharic shield up through your main vertical current of your body and up out chakra 14. That is the first place you're going to be running current, is in your main vertical current. From there, by tomorrow, when we get into learning how to direct that current with the triadic phase currents, we'll be making balls of that in different chakras so we can move it to different places, and we will be opening the palm chakras. And I have a feeling by tomorrow evening, possibly the fingertip chakras, which is something that wasn't in Kathara 1 or 2 yet, but they're teaching us about that now, and it's not in writing, but it might be by tomorrow. If not, I'll at least give it to you verbally. Okay, so this is the beginning. This is the code we're going to start working with, and it's a combination of 11th dimensional frequency, which is dark silver, mixed with pure white frequency, that's a 12th dimensional frequency, that gives you the pale silver frequency. So it's the D11, D12 frequency that combines particle and antiparticle together. So you get the both parallel frequency and the frequency from this time matrix. So you get a full divine blueprint instead of a polarized one. Okay, where was the color chart? Is that in there somewhere? Did we pass that? We didn't pass that, did we? The color chart?
No, we haven't done it yet.
Okay. Now, the next one I'll show you. We'll do this one next year. This. We talk about the planetary biofeed interface system. Okay? It needs to go up a little, Levy. You need to see the bottom here.
Page 54.
Yeah. Okay.
Bingo caller.
Bingo caller. Okay. Now, inside of your body, which we'll see where it is in a little while, but inside your body you have a Kathara 12 tree grid. That was the level 1 of your Kathara grid system. Well, the planetary body has one too. And at the center, and it's a little more complicated as far as how that fits into this, and when you fit that into that, it actually gives you the Stargate locations of where on the planet the Stargates are, which we deal with in the Templar workshop. But for now, to understand how we're going to get current out of the Earth to run our D12 frequency, and it's a gift, because every time we pull some out of the Earth pulls more out of the Sun pulls more out of the galaxy pulls more out of the universe, and the universe pulls more from Source. And Source doesn't mind at all, because it's perpetual energy and consciousness. So every time we take a gift for ourselves from the Earth by running D12 frequency up and letting the Earth gift us with that, we are allowing the Earth to gift itself from the other higher levels of the Mahara current coming down. Because just like we talked about, the planet has shields, just like we have shields. There's a Maharic shield that holds the divine blueprint for a person. The planet has one, the Sun has one, the galaxy has one, and the universe has one, and each of the 5 harmonic universes have one. The process of getting Source's consciousness and energy current coming in is the process of literally feeding it down from the bigger ones through into the smaller ones. So as we bring into ourselves and allow ourselves to receive, we are also allowing the planet to receive, and the galaxy, etc., etc. So it's not that we're taking something. It's not that we now owe somebody something because we took something and it might make them have something less. A lot of people think, oh, I shouldn't take from the Earth. I want to give to the Earth. I don't want to take from the Earth. You will be giving to the Earth by allowing the Earth to give to you. This is a principle that also applies in human relationships. A lot of us, especially more spiritually mature people, have gotten into this space where they're not takers anymore. They don't run around trying to take energy from people. They do the opposite. They give and give and give and give, but they actually buffer and don't allow themselves to receive. Oh, no, that's okay, I don't need that. No, you keep it, you have it. You know, to the point where you don't have what you need. You ought to be nice to have that, but you're so conditioned to tell yourself that you don't deserve to have it, you don't let yourself receive. You're actually blocking a flow of current that way. You're blocking the universe from feeding you, just like if you tell the Earth, no, I'm not going to let you give me D12 frequency. Well, that frequency is going to sit in the Earth grids. It's going to sit there, and it's not going to let the Earth pull any new refreshed current in. If we keep the circulation going by allowing ourselves to receive as well as to give, including when we're dealing with the Maharic seal, allow the Earth to give to us. We are doing the Earth a favor by allowing it to give to us, and we are doing ourselves a favor if we allow other people to give to us, but we're doing them a favor too, and vice versa. So we can understand that flow of energy. They were all meant to have a perpetual supply, and you get it by giving it and allowing it to be given to you. Whenever you block the flow on either end, you create energy blockage. So here we have the planetary biofeed interface system, the stargates of the planet, through the connection of Stargate 1 to Earth core, because we're going to be connecting to Earth core, where the first Kathara center in our body will actually pick up frequency from the first Kathara center in the planetary grid. This happens through chakra 13. Our chakra 13 is located in the Earth's core. Everybody's is located there. It's where we connect to Earth's planetary shields, the Maharic shield and the smaller shields. That is the feed line that we get our current through, that we get our higher dimensional current through, or even our 3-dimensional current. So what we're going to do is open this circuitry here. When we begin the processes of activating the Maharic shield and using the Hierophant, The Hierophant mathematical code will be sent down in the body through the chakra system and down in to stimulate our Kathara Center 1. Our Kathara Center 1 is located in the 13th chakra at Earth's core. So we're going to open this part of ourselves and allow the full set of frequencies that go with that to start flowing through. Right now we only have about a third of those frequencies flowing through. It's one of the reasons we die so young. Our races die so young. We were never designed to die in the first place, but not even 75 to 100 years. This is really bad. I mean, even in the biblical days, they lived to be 800 years old, and they really did. So when we begin to open this is the key, this link between Kathara Center 1 and the planetary grids and Kathara Center 1 in our own body grids. Because it's through that link that we can begin to pull more of the D12 current into our body. It's also through that link that when we get into Templar mechanics, where we decide we want to help the Earth as well directly, that we learn to send energy down into the Earth's grids, where our bodies, because we've conditioned them to hold enough D12 subharmonics, can actually help heal areas on the planet and restore their divine blueprint progressively, which will block progressively any types of manipulations that are being done to the planetary grids to cause harm here. So this is a key to not only personal healing, it's also a key to planetary healing and to major world service issues if you go in, if you want to go in that direction. Okay, next one, please. Okay.
104.
Yeah, 104. Now, I'm really hoping before break we get through that. God knows how many pages it's going to take to get to where I'm dying to show you where your Kathara grid is in your body, because that's the fun part. It's kind of like, okay, where is it? It's like, okay, I've got one. All right, I want to run this current. Where is it? How do I do it? Where's my Maharic shield? Let's go. I know. I feel it.
3 frames away.
Okay, well, I want to keep them in sequence, though, because then they'll be like, wait a minute, what did that mean? That's because we skipped 4 pages. I don't want to do that to you either, so we're getting there. Okay, now, this part is important also because it gives us an idea of what we're supposed to function like and what we'll progressively be restoring in our own body template, but also bringing back to the race. As we heal ourselves, we are doing a great favor to the human race and the indigo race on this planet. We're bringing back a potential that was almost lost and outbred, genetically outbred from this race where it couldn't be regenerated. We are regenerating it, so these potentials come back. Now, growth through time. You remember, time's all happening at once, so why does it seem like we start out as fetuses and then we grow to be children? We become babies and then children and then grown-ups and then die and fall apart? Well, why do we get this image if it's all really happening at once? Growth through time is created through frequency accretion. Accretion means bringing in, drawing in to the self. In this context, that's how that word is used. Frequency accretion. Drawing frequency bands from the dimensional unified fields of consciousness into the personal morphogenetic field, which expands the personal morphogenetic field. All right, what we're doing is turning on more flashlight sequences in our templates, which gives us the same. What that says is drawing frequency bands in. What does that mean? We're pulling them from here to here? Not exactly. They're already in here. We're turning them on. We're turning on light bulbs. The more light bulbs you turn on, the more hologram is projected. We move through time, and we start out with a very little bit of light bulbs on. A very little tiny bit at conception. There's a very little tiny bit, little spark of light. A light bulb turns on that allows for a D12 current to anchor, to give it a divine blueprint, so an individual can happen. From that point, that fetal body, that conceived body, has to expand itself. It has to be able to hold multiple dimensions of consciousness before a being can actually live in there. Many miscarriages happen with baby bodies, that there was something wrong with the genetic combination of that particular conception, where there wasn't enough frequency. The body couldn't hold, the little baby body or the fetal body couldn't hold enough frequency to allow the soul to put an anchoring rod of frequency into the body. Fetal integration process is the process by which you, as an avatar, and as an oversoul, and as a soul, and as a being with a part of you in D3, anchor your consciousness into a very specific mathematical template that encodes your scalar grid, where your consciousness is stationed, into a very particular biological orientation. On this side of the fence, that's what's happening on the non-manifest side that you don't see here. On this side of the fence, what you get is a fetal pattern, which has a portion of the DNA template from the mother and a portion from the father that get put together and melded into a new one, and it's into that new pattern that at first isn't a separate person yet. Okay? When conception occurs, that is not an individual yet. It is the potential for an individual. At that point, the soul has not anchored. No soul, no Christos has yet anchored itself, put down literally a rod of frequency to anchor into the first of the first 8 cells. The first of the first 8 cells in cell division, when a zygote is formed, they hold the potential for soul integration, which is fetal integration, the process, bless you, of an individual life choosing that body pattern to grow it to be human. This means that no matter how much Catholic Church wants to tell you that life starts at conception, they're wrong, because it can't within the natural laws of physics that apply to the formation of body forms in the hologram. Because if you tried to do fetal integration right at the moment of conception or right after, you'd blow the pattern apart, because the frequencies involved, the 12 subharmonics, need time to fill out in the form by using the template that was inherited from both mother and father. So what you really have is part of the mom and part of the dad are growing a shell. The shell has consciousness. It has body consciousness. It has part of the mom's consciousness and part of the dad's consciousness. But it's not an individual yet. It doesn't have its own soul that came in for its own purposes. This is also where you end up. The sins of the father and the mother get passed down to the child, because that part of the mother's consciousness and part of the father's consciousness that get totally embedded in the gene code that starts the body that we integrate into. We take on a part of their miasms, or the part of their DNA template that are twisted. This is why so many times the issues that have been in our parents' life that were never resolved, we end up like the next generation, and we take a layer of it off, and then our kids take another layer of it off. So we are literally trying to heal. We heal the generations before us because we take on what's left that's still messed up in their template. Now, there were cycles of growth. Growth through time is the expansion process where that little tiny zygote body, that little tiny thing that's going to be a fetus that's not yet strong enough to hold a soul, begins to expand, which means it begins to draw frequency into itself. It has a Kathara grid at conception. That Kathara grid was inherited from both sides, the mother line and the father line gene code. It has a sentient body consciousness, like a rock does. That is what it is at that point. It can move. It doesn't think in the same way. What it does is think thought patterns coming from mother and father. It actually still has an energy connection to mom and dad. So what the baby thinks before fetal integration is not the baby's thoughts. It's mom and dad's thoughts from the subconscious level. So it becomes a vessel actually for the processing of some of mom and dad's stuff. Now, between the 33rd and 56th day after conception is when there has been enough of the little flashline sequences turned on in that physical structure that a fetal integration can take place. A fetal integration involves the anchoring of chords of frequency from the higher dimensional fields and from the D3 field, down here, D1, 2, 3, into what were the first 8 cells that formed after conception. They are the anchoring rods for 12 currents of frequency. And the first one to come in is the Christos spark, a D12 spark of energy that sets a divine blueprint within that individual. At that point, a silver cord starts to form, a pale silver cord that literally runs through the biofields and connects you to your D12 Maharic shield template. The Maharic shield manifests below your feet, but the silver cord looks like it goes up through the universe, because it does in the spatial relationships of the hologram. Once that happens, that is fetal integration. That means somebody decided they want to live in that body. Somebody's going to inhabit that baby body. It's going to become a person. If fetal integration doesn't take place, after a time, it will become a miscarriage. And that doesn't mean that a baby died. What it means is that there was something in that particular vessel, or agreements that were made, that maybe there was a person who wanted to come in to that, but maybe there was an arrangement made with the parents that this was not the right time. It's from D4, 5, and 6 even. If you had that consciousness opened in your body, you wouldn't mourn over a process like that. you probably wouldn't end up with a fetal pattern in there that you weren't going to take to term anyway. A lot of times people end up having pregnancies here that was not part of their divine blueprint at all. And sometimes they get inhabited. Sometimes they're by souls that are still trying to evolve hard. Sometimes they get inhabited by things you don't want in there. Some children aren't born innocent. And that's another part of the healing thing that is very hard to deal with. I mean, did you ever see this show, Rosemary's Baby, from way back? And you know, people are like, oh, isn't that terrible? That can never happen. You know what? It does happen. There are babies born in various types of ways, one without souls. Some actually never have anything connecting directly in to do fetal integration, where they actually integrate with the DNA template, but they may have a fallen angelic overlord play with it and keep the body systems alive so they can use it as a vessel of harm. There are children like this in the world. There are some that are incarnate dark avatars, that are incarnate oversoul, dark oversouls or souls. That doesn't mean that you hate them. It doesn't mean that you say they're bad, they can't be fixed, because they still have a little leeway before they can get all of their meanness into body, that you might be able to help them make a link to the Christos. And if you can, by helping them run D12 frequency, you might get their original avatar before they got twisted, their original divine blueprint self will anchor the body for them, and it will take over, and you can actually, a child that started out as somebody who came in purposely to do damage, can actually be turned around and put back on a Christos path. Sometimes it can't be done. Now, it's interesting, growth through time, as that little baby fetus pattern expands to where it can hold a consciousness, and that expands to become a baby, and that expands out to birth itself into the world and become a child and then grows up. This is a process of frequency accretion, which means we're bringing more frequency, piece by piece, strand by strand, flash line by flash line, into the body hologram. And it's filling out the hologram and making it bigger as we go along. That's why when we have 12 strands activated, we're much taller than we are here. Our bodies are much bigger. There's also more space between our atoms. So there were specific growth rhythms that were natural for a 12-strand being that constituted age lines. These, when we look at this here, it says the Kathara grid is functioning proper. When the Kathara grid is functioning properly, there are set morphogenetic field expansion periods within the linear growth cycles of the human body. What that means is, when the DNA and the Kathara grid beneath it are working the right way, there are stages of growth that specific levels of integration will take place. Fetal integration is what starts the new life. Then at a certain point, soul integration begins, which means strands 4, 5, and 6 would turn on, and your soul consciousness would fully embody. And then after you got those frequencies in body, the next expansion would be your oversoul getting into body. Strands 7, 8, and 9 would activate, and it would bring in your 7th, 8th, and 9th dimensional levels of oversoul consciousness. And then the final one would be your Christos avatar self. Now, if you're an indigo, there's even more after this. But as a 12-strand human, the next and last phase of expansion would be becoming your immortal self. This is how it was supposed to work, where you would get your strands 10, 11, and 12 activated, and you would be running full 12-dimensional consciousness and frequency. You would have an immortal breatharian body that you would have the conscious ability to manifest and demanifest at will. You would understand massive amounts of things you can't even imagine right now that you might be able to understand about the planet, the galaxy, the universe. You would have memory of all your 1,728 selves and be able to flip your consciousness between any one of them, like TV station. You'd be able to flip there, oh, now I'm in 2 million BC, you know, this kind of thing, and actually be aware of yourself in all of those spaces. And the process that used to take in terms of time in density 1, fetal integration started at birth. And the first phase of growth would be getting in the D1, 2, 3 consciousness, all right, where you'd have to integrate all the frequencies of Dimension 1, Dimension 2, and Dimension 3 to create a personality incarnate grounding base for the rest to expand into. Between ages 11 and 12, chronologically years, using the year system, the time translations we have now, by 11 or 12, fetal integration, the whole process of personality integration would be done, and the next harmonic integration would start, which means harmonic 2 integration would start at age 12 and go till age 22, and it would be soul integration. That's when the soul would begin fully experiencing and expressing in the body. we're going to go into a fourth, fifth, and sixth dimensional consciousness. Between 22 and 33, you would have oversoul integration, and 33 and 44, you'd have full avatar integration. So by the age of 44, you had transmuted the body from what appeared to be a mortal body with three-dimensional consciousness into a six-dimensional consciousness that had a semi-etheric body and could turn its gene code on from two harmonics to the next level, the etheric consciousness, where you have the oversoul consciousness in the body, which means you'd be able to control your DNA and move between three harmonic universes. You'd be able to take stargates between here and the next level up and the next level up. And by the time you were here, this was graduation. That's where you were a master. You were fully embodied. And you always were that person up there, that avatar. But to try to get yourself in this body took a bit of time. You had to slowly and gently expand the body to be able to hold all that you are and all that you were before you got in here. So these were the natural processes. If the Kathara grid's working properly, the body does not die, but rather progressively transmutes into progressively less dense states of matter in an immortal body form via the accretion, or the pulling into the frequencies, of four harmonics of frequency. Present Kathara grid distortions block the integration of harmonic 2 and begin a condition called molecular compaction, which creates body degeneration and death. They block the process right here. We start to die at age 12. That's when the death hormones start to happen. That's when what's naturally supposed to happen, where our strand 3 is fully activated and strand 4 is supposed to start to go into activation to bring in our astral consciousness, and after that our archetype at D5. This is blocked, where these frequencies try to come in, and they come in, and it's like, kind of like, imagine a hammer on crystal. If our DNA templates, or the lower strands, or all of the strands, are crystalline structures, and these higher frequencies are coming in, and they're supposed to have receivers that are ready to receive them here, that allow natural expansion. Those natural frequencies start to come in to the body, but because those receivers have been blocked and twisted, they can't receive and draw into the crystalline template of the lower strands. They come in like a sledgehammer, and those frequencies hit and pound on the scalar grids of the lower strands, progressively twisting them and crushing them and making them worse, where they can hold less and less frequency. What that does is create real messes within the body template, which translate into chemical messes in the DNA, which create literal genetic mutations in chemical terms within the body. And it sets in motion a series of chemical and hormonal transactions within the body that create progressively toxic chemical combinations in the body. That's why we get cancers. That's why we end up with heart disease. That's why the sicknesses that plague our races, they start here. We start to poison ourselves at age 12. When we begin to reset the imprint for health, we begin to change this process. And it's not something you fix overnight. It's like running your heart sealed 3 times and cancer goes away. I wish it were that simple. There are levels and levels of frequency distortions, template distortions, that have built up to create conditions that we call illness now, that are illness in our bodies now. But understanding that the beginnings of healing are beginning to work with resetting the original divine blueprint, that's our saving grace. Then we just have to learn how to, we know how to set the divine blueprint. Then, how do we expedite the process where it gets into the layers that need it most? And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow evening, the new stuff that we're giving. It's how to expedite the processes we learn with these processes. Okay, this chart on page 60 just gives you the rundown on the levels of self that are supposed to come into the body, the natural processes, the original human genetic imprint, personality integration, which is called telluric integration. Remember the telluric shield that goes with the elemental kingdom in D1, 2, and 3? That's called telluric. Density 1, telluric. Birth through age 12 expands the morphogenetic field through accreting the frequencies of dimensions 1, 2, and 3 and activating strand templates 1, 2, and 3. And this takes you right up through soul integration. It explains, so you can look at it yourself because I already talked about it. Soul integration, oversoul integration, Christos, avatar integration. That's how our bodies are supposed to work. This is what they're doing right now. Contemporary human genetic imprint. The personality integration starts at birth and it doesn't even finish at death. Soul integration does not start. Duratic integration, which is density 2 integration, doesn't even start because those frequencies can't enter the body template, because the template at the Kathara level is mutated, and that's what creates the genetic mutation. It's not that the genetic mutation itself does not create the problem. That is one of the symptoms of the problem. It is the Kathara grid distortions that are creating the genetic mutation itself. Oversoul integration, don't get to do it. Christos avatar integration, don't get to do it. Blockage. Deterioration and death of the physical body occur rather than progressive frequency accretion for cellular transmutation and dimensional ascension. So in other words, we die instead of ascend. We become mortal and finite instead of the joyful avatar beings who are immortal and eternal. It doesn't change the fact that we're eternal. We are eternal, but our bodies haven't been. We can begin to change that process and bring the process of immortality back to this race. We're not going to bring it back in the next 5 years. We're going to begin the healing process. So whatever our potential is, the best we can be, we'll be able to become. That doesn't mean we're going to be able to ascend in the next 5 years, but we might be. There's going to be a lot of opportunities that you don't get every day popping up in the next 5 or 10 years. Yes? Okay, yeah, this question.
When is the personality coming into the fetus then? Is that still in the womb, or is that at birth? And what happens with abortion?
Okay, I was going to go there, and then I didn't. All right. The first part of your question was at what point do you come in? Do you do fetal integration? After anywhere between 33 and 56 days, you can. Now, 33 days, the pattern may not be ready yet. Might have to wait till 56 days till it fills out enough, but it should be able to hold your consciousness by then. Then it's up to you. Then you have the choice as an incoming being who's incarnating into that form. You have a choice as to whether you like hanging out with mom, or you have better things to do, or you can't stand the person and you're just clearing the karmic debt here, where you might come in 2 minutes after birth. Right? Sometimes the soul will hang around in the astral level. It has to anchor to some degree so it can begin feeding more energy to the fetal pattern and the baby pattern to keep it alive. But many times it will be an overshadow, which means it hangs out in the fourth dimensional frequencies, and it sends frequencies down in and puts tap rods in. It's anchored itself in, but it hasn't fully integrated into the DNA template. So it can still run around and float around and remember it. Because souls, when they're incarnating, remember, at that point you still remember that as soon as you get into that body, it's going to be lights out. You're going to forget who you were, and you're going to start all over again as if you never knew yourself. And a lot of us will do that as late as possible in the process. I remember coming in, I think I came in, and I had a heck of a time coming in, actually. Once I realized who it was I agreed to be mom, because we'd had some interesting experiences in other time vectors that she wasn't very nice to me as a male person. Terror was the first feeling that I had. Oh no, not that one, right? And I remember trying to run back out of the body. When you do fetal integration, you kind of feel what your perception will be is something like spiraling your consciousness down through what's the crown chakra at the top of the head, and you progressively expand down in and anchor into the lower chakras and into the DNA template. Now I remember getting about down to here, to the astral level, and going, oh no, I remember that one. I know that person. I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. So I tried to spiral back up the other way. Where I tried to reverse my spiral and crawl back out, and I did. I got myself back out, and the crown chakra started to close, which meant the baby body would have died because it was going to drop in frequency. So I had a little help with people who knew I was contracted to do some stuff this lifetime, where they actually opened the seal on the fourth heart chakra, the baby body, which usually doesn't open that young. And they literally ripped it open and threw me in. and stretched me out and said, there you go, you're in. So we each have a different story as how fetal integration went for us. And it's fun when you start to realize you have this memory with you, that you can begin to access it. Because a lot of us has terrible pain associated with it. Where, just imagine, you're a person who knows yourself as an avatar, who just feels free. You're a free creation being. You're at one with God. You know your connection to God. And you start to get into this body, and you know you're going to feel lost and scared and lonesome. Now, most of us contracted as human souls or indigo souls, and even a lot of the Anunnaki or Drac souls who are working Emerald Covenant, contracted here to come and help this place in this space-time. They knew they were walking into a battleground. They knew they were walking into a final conflict drama that had to do with fallen angelics who, after millions and millions of years of trying to take over the stargates here, were going to come in for one last round. This was where the good versus evil was going to head off, because the Christos realignment mission was going to be done here. So we came in with a sense of responsibility, but also a sense of sadness. So there's a lot, for a lot of us, if you start to go into where your fetal memory is and just try to lean into it. Okay, let me try to remember when I was a baby. Let me try to remember me when I came in. There was a point. I mean, it's absolutely, you are here. There's absolutely no doubt that you have a fetal integration point, or you wouldn't be sitting in the room. You can go and ask your own Christos self, say, just be with me with this and help me to find this. Because you'll also find, right on the other side, right before you went into the go in and expand into the fetal pattern, you had all the reasons why you were coming. You knew why you were coming. You knew why you chose the parents you did. You knew the mission you were on. You knew what time you were probably going to check out and leave. You knew what you were here to do. So there's a joy on the other end of the sorrow that you might have felt in having to literally shut all your perceptions off and literally like walking around in the dark for a whole lifetime just to rediscover who you were. These are some of the things that you can look for in yourself. And as we begin to do that, when we begin to find these memories, we will also begin to make a connection between, in our DNA strands. Like with me, I had, you could call it a gift, you could also call it a curse, because I got thrown in my fourth chakra, which meant that fourth chakra was opened while the fetal body was still in the womb, which meant it was picking up astral frequencies and processing D4 frequencies much sooner than it should. I came in with open incarnational memory. I remembered my whole fetal integration process from the time before I could speak. I could talk to things. In fact, I used to terrify my mother, she tells me, because I used to lay there with my eyes open while I was technically asleep and talk to the angels and tell her, go away, the angels are coming to take me away, I belong with them. And I would tell her things like this. You know, I could freak you out when you're a kid. You know, the kid is like just learning to talk, and these are some of the things that is like staring out into space wide awake while it's asleep, you know. So, you begin to get fetal integration memory when you activate fourth strand. So it's not something you have to wait till 12 strands are activated to get. If it's too traumatic for you, you will find a part of yourself isn't letting you have it yet. If you can't remember it and you're looking for it, there's a trauma there. It may be a trauma that had to do with who your parents were this time and why you chose this situation that you're not ready to handle. But if you look and you really want to know, it will be brought to you, and it will, you know, your own higher consciousness will help you to have it. You can find out amazing things by remembering who you were right before you integrated into the fetal pattern. Okay? There are other levels of, like when soul integration was supposed to start at age 12, there is another probable reality field that is quite far removed in frequency from this particular time matrix. But it is a reflection of this time matrix in which things did not go wrong. We have parts of ourselves in that matrix as well. And they give us strength and they send us strength. So somewhere you have an age 12 memory where you actually were able to do soul integration. That implies, in that line of probability, all the way up to age 44, there's a 44-year-old self around there someplace in a planet that's similar to this that evolved different, that has fully embodied as an avatar. You have a self that fulfilled the divine blueprint pattern, but it is not in this time matrix system, but it still exists in the cosmic matrix. And you can make a link through your knowing that it's there and through your own DNA to help it send you frequency, to help sustain, just like we can help you sustain an activation in the DNA because we transmit frequency that we have in our bodies. They can help you too. They're aware of you. Those levels of self are aware that our levels of self are here. So anyway, we'll move on. These are the 4 natural cycles of morphogenetic expansion. I'm saying now as far as what that is.
Oh, anatomy.
Oh, anatomy. Levels of human anatomy. How are we doing on that break time?
It's 10 to 6.
10 to 6.
So if you're going to give them 15 minutes now, you're going to go on the lady clock, right? Yeah, do it.
Yeah, you want to do it now? Okay. All right. Well, before we get into this, because it's just going to go right through to technique, we're going to take our 15-minute break now. And I don't mean to torture you, but I think that's going to be the last one before 8 o'clock, before we leave. So now's the time to do all the, like, vital runs and those kind of things. You know? Okay. We're back. Okay. Now, remember yesterday I told you about how once in a while we'll pick up the pace and like the flash lines start to go faster and I start to talk a lot faster and we start to kind of like cruise? Well, we're going to try to do some of that tonight because before we leave, I want to get you through enough of the theory where what we do makes sense, and I want to get you into 2 techniques tonight. So you can work with the first 2 techniques. So when we come in tomorrow, we can get into opening the triadic phase currents. And first you have to learn about what they are. And first, before you know any of that stuff, you need to learn some basic things like where are all these good things in your body? Where is your Maharic shield? Where are your other shields? Where are your Kathara grids? Those kind of things. So we're going to go into that now as far as the anatomy. The graphs are in your book. Everything you'll see up here is in your book, so you can study it on your own. In fact, this can be used as a correspondence course. A lot of people that can't get to workshops actually just literally try to learn all this stuff with the book and whatever. We have one of the videos from a workshop, with the package. So we're going to go through this. I guess I'm going to do this myself for now. All right, I'm going to go over this real quick, and then we get into the fun graphs. This is on page 105 in the book. The graphs that we're going to use right after, the first one is on page 64. So I'd suggest going to page 64, and I'll just read off some of this to you. You don't need to look at the words right now. Whoops. It's the bottom one. Most. Okay. The Kathara grid is the core holographic template upon which the human body and consciousness enter dimensionalization in order to experience manifestation. So it is the Kathara grid that your consciousness first anchors into the dimensionalized system so you can participate in the hologram. I'm going to answer one quick question that was part of a question. I forgot the other half of it by the time we moved on through the first part. Was when we were talking about fetal integration. Someone had asked a question about abortion. Okay? Yep, I know. All right, and I will answer that because that's a big controversial issue that government loves to get involved with. That it really should mind its own business because it's between a person, their soul, the soul that's incoming, and their relationship to Source. Before I explain a little bit about the abortion issue, I will go back to the point that I said. Between the 33rd and 56th day is the first time soul integration can take place, which means before the 33rd day. There's no way there's going to be a soul who is anchored into that body. Now, in the days when our DNA templates were functioning the right way and we had our consciousness with us down here, you didn't have accidental pregnancies. In fact, you had wonderful, elaborate rituals for 2 years before the fact, preparing the body, preparing the place where it was going to happen, and you had open telepathic communication with the incoming soul. You knew who it was, why it chose you, why you chose it. It was a very open family experience before the being even came in to your body as a female. In the original days, in 12-strand DNA activation, the body systems are a bit different. Breatharians don't need to eat. Well, they also have babies in different ways. There's actually an energy form that's projected out through the navel region that serves as the vessel. The child actually grows outside of the womb once the conception occurs. Talk about easy birth. You don't need Lamaze. In the old days, you didn't need Lamaze. But anyway, now ideally, situations don't arise where you have an issue of would a person have to abort a child or not, abort a possible child, abort somebody that might become a child. Because right now, if you don't know, have enough consciousness with you to control your own fertility. In the old days, we knew a woman could choose when ovulation would occur, and it would only occur when conception was desired. So there were the question of abortion was never there. But now that it is, because right now what's happening is there's all sorts of interference. For thousands of years there have been here. There have been babies born here that aren't human souls, that didn't belong here in the first place, that were created because humans got messed with by fallen angelics and guided into conception relationships that shouldn't have happened, that weren't part of their divine blueprint, in order to have fallen angelics incarnate part of their soul matrices into the human. They called it an experiment. It was an experiment of how to take over a species from the inside out. Now, in the old days, there were some really weird things that happened, where before we lost our sensitivity to being able to feel what kind of energy was coming in, some people would know that there was a bad seed coming. There was such a thing as a bad seed. This is when issues of abortion actually first came up. When there would be certain, a woman would start to feel dark avatars in the field, and they could feel that they were being used as a vessel to birth them. And there were times when they would literally throw themselves off cliffs before they would allow that to come through their bodies. There was a lot of abuse done to the human body, particularly with females, where they were used as breeding vessels here from 25,500 BC and forward. So the issue of abortion really started in Atlantis, when women were faced with the choice of whether they were going to be a part, an unwilling part, of allowing this planet to be invaded by fallen angelics who were going to try to take it over, or whether they were going to stop the process. So originally it wasn't about trying to cause harm to something. It was a decision that was made to try to prevent harm from happening. Abortion is a strange issue nowadays. The same issues are going on, but it doesn't mean you go out and drown your baby because you think it's bad. We're way beyond being able to work in that framework, and that's not the right way to do it either. Because at this point, whatever's coming in, even if it might be a dark avatar, there are ways you can try to help it connect to its Christos. Because before it became a dark avatar, it first was a founder. It was a founder's race being that has a divine blueprint. So in this state of consciousness that we have grown enough to where drastic measures should not have to be taken. Now, when it comes to abortion, God doesn't get mad and punish you if you're a woman who has an abortion for whatever reasons you chose to. Many women have abortions because they don't know how to control their fertility. Because it's only been recently, in the last 30 years or so, we've actually had chemical options to try to control it, and then we have the Catholic Church telling us we don't dare use them because God's going to get mad. Well, the only thing that's going to get mad if a woman decides they don't want to have a child, and ideally the decision's made before the conception happens, so you don't have the issue of abortion to deal with. The only person who gets upset with a woman having the free choice to not be a breeder are fallen angelic races who want to get as many of their little bodies on the planet as they possibly can in order to have an army, a fleet of consciousness here in physical form for when the stargates open. There have been breedings going on for 25,000 years to make sure there was a team, a little army that would represent the fallen angelic sides here in human form. Now, the issue of abortion has two aspects to it. One, nobody has the right to make a decision for a being. A woman carrying a child here, that's a big soul obligation, contract, responsibility thing. No man has the right to enforce it on a woman. No government has the right in the Christos to tell a woman what that choice needs to be. However, the male person that helped to conceive the fetal pattern does have a say, where a woman should realize just because it's in their body, it's also a part of the gene code and the consciousness of the male that helped to create it. There's a responsibility factor for both people toward the new pattern of potential life they've created and toward each other and treating each other with love and respect. If a guy wants to have a child and a woman doesn't and pregnancy happens, there's a dilemma. There's some big, deep soul issues that they need to work through together. But if it comes down to the physical, technical aspects of abortion, there are some times when it doesn't cause any damage. If fetal integration has not occurred, what you are doing is the same thing as removing a piece of living physical tissue from the body, such as when you get an organ removed. Except it's not even quite as much a part of your own morphogenetic field yet, because it's only a small, new potential for life. You can have an abortion as a woman without creating karmic consequences, but only if fetal integration has not occurred. Now, if fetal integration has occurred, regardless of whether it's a Christos avatar, a dark avatar, or a little guy from Dimension 4 that's coming in, once fetal integration has occurred, there is an electromagnetic field bond between your DNA template as a mother and the DNA template, or the consciousness template, of the fetal integrated being. That means if you get rid of the body pattern that it's trying to anchor into, it's stuck in your field. If it's stuck in your field, that means you've literally taken on its whole karmic imprint, whoever it is. It also means that while that other consciousness is stuck in your field, it's stuck and you're stuck. It will block your DNA activation process and you'll block its. It will usually lead to a condition where a few years down the road another pregnancy happens. so it can come out of your field and into a body and become individuated and separate from you. These things are handled. These soul agreements are made on much higher levels. They're made between the souls and the oversouls and the avatar levels of consciousness. If you're a female and had an abortion, you're not damned for life. God's not going to throw you into the pits of hell because you did a bad thing. Here it's very frustrating because we don't know when the point of fetal integration has occurred unless we are able to establish telepathic rapport with the person who has their eye on that fetal pattern. That's the first thing that men and women really should do if they get in a situation where pregnancy is an issue around them at all, whether they're thinking about doing it, whether they're afraid it happened by accident. They should start to realize if they run their Maharic shield, which we'll learn how to do, to bring in the Christos frequencies, they can use that stream of consciousness to go through their own avatar level and say, please help me understand what I got myself into. What is the right thing to do here? Because there are so many multi-level issues involved with pregnancy. Pregnancy has to do with agreeing to help another soul. Babies aren't little people. They're in little bodies. They're big people. We're all beings that have avatar levels, oversoul levels, soul levels. You might have just a soul coming into the body where it's not actually going to anchor any parts of its higher self. It'll have them as potential, but it might not be there to express it this life. You may have an agreement that you made in 2 million BC that in this time frame you would bring somebody through. So you don't know. A pregnancy that happens by accident in this life, there is no such thing as an accident. It happened for some reason. Now whether that reason's part of the divine blueprint or not remains to be seen. And this is where learning to establish a daily rapport with your own higher consciousness through your own avatar level can help give you the guidance you need. Because there may be multi-level soul agreements that yes, you're supposed to go through with it, or yes, you're supposed to have an abortion. Even abortions that have taken place where there was a soul that came in, fetal integration had happened, and the being is stuck in the mother's field for sometimes 20 years. Sometimes all through that lifetime, and it'll come through with the mother in the next fetal integration process, where literally in the next life that child will be born. Sometimes these are agreements that are made. So to be able to pass a judgment on abortion from the three-dimensional level is ludicrous. There are too many issues and potential reasons involved. When it comes to personal responsibility, when I talk to people, particularly like teens that kind of like get into the Kundalini force and it's the only thing that feels good in the universe right now, so let's like worry about it later, and then later comes a little too soon and you have to worry about it much sooner than you wanted to. What I do try to suggest to people is because it's extremely difficult to tell whether fetal integration has occurred, the best course to take is the general course of the do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. It is the concept of being harmless whenever possible. And if there's a possibility that you have created a child, it's even if you're not ready to have one, there are millions of people that would love to adopt babies. You don't know right now if that consciousness is on the good side as far as the Christos pattern or something trying to work against it. But it's not your judgment call anyway. If you've gotten yourself in a situation, you didn't get there alone, first of all. Your own soul knows why you're there. Your oversoul knows why, and your avatar knows why. It may be something that you carried through from another one of your life experiences in the other time vectors. It may be that something happened that you were supposed to fulfill, a birth agreement, and it didn't happen. And this time, even though you're not quite ready, it's time to clear that pattern so you can move on, and so it can move on. So you might do it here. So I do recommend, whenever possible, I wouldn't want to have to make the decision whether I'm going to terminate without knowing what I'm doing, terminate the potential for life. But at the same time, if it was a situation, say, where the mother was going to die, if a pregnancy was allowed to go through, the mother has a right. The mother should go into her own space with her own Christos self and say, what is the right thing for me to do here? If it's really going to be this child or me, what is the right thing to do? And each person will get a different answer. That's why a government should not have a right to impose its will over the will and the consciousness of a person down here and their connection to God and their connection to their own Christos. So when it comes to abortion, that's a hard one to answer. We can tell you the technicals. We can tell you that yes, if you abort something that already fetal integrated, you're going to carry it around as baggage, and it's going to hold you down until you can set it free, because you're holding it down as well. We can tell you that if you have an abortion and it hasn't fetal integrated, you will not have anything left in your field except perhaps guilt. If you don't know, if you think you might have caused harm, you will teach yourself hard lessons through the experience. So again, it's a personal choice, but it always should be made vertically, not horizontally. And what I mean vertically is don't look for the answers out here. It doesn't matter what your mother, your brother, the priest, the pope, or your government have to say about it. What matters is what your own Christos self has to say, even if it's the most unpopular decision in the world. And sometimes having the baby is the worst. Sometimes the whole family, oh, how could you do that? Oh, that's horrible. Don't have that child. Have an abortion. And on the other side, you have the ones for the right to life are saying, oh, you can't kill anything. How dare you? You're terrible. You'll be damned forever. And they show you pictures of mutilated fetuses and try to make you feel really awful. You need to find a personal relationship with it and realize that no God is going to damn you if you do have one. But you may take on a burden yourself, a burden of guilt because you made a decision without knowing for sure. But you can know for sure. If you work with simple meditations on a daily basis to get in touch with your Christos self that you should do long before you worry about babies at all, you will be able to literally get a knowing. And that's where you can, through that knowing, say, okay, well, who is the soul that's attached here? And, who is it? Somebody I know? You can start to have a telepathic rapport first with your own Christos self to get your guidance. How can I act responsibly and in my divine blueprint with this? Whatever's right. If you surrender what you think you want to do to whatever is the highest and rightest thing to do for you and everybody else from the Christos blueprint, and just surrender that decision and ask for guidance from your own Christos, you will get the clearest answer. Sometimes it'll be so clear it'll blow your mind, where you'll start to hear your abdomen talk to you as a female. You'll literally get telepathic, hello, Mom, I'm here. Oh dear. No, it's not time to run for the funny farm and get Valium. It's time to realize you're opening up your D4 circuitry so you can start to hear multidimensional communication. So that, I won't go further with that because there's really not any further that I can go with that question. It's a good question that was asked. But when it comes to how countries try to pass laws to govern this kind of thing, countries should know better than to try to inflict their three-dimensional will on a God issue. Churches should know better, and in the old days they did. The Christos teachings never taught you not to have an abortion. The Christos teachings taught you to, first of all, not get yourself into pregnancies that you didn't want to have in the first place. But if that happened, it taught you to run vertically and have your own personal relationship with Source. Ideally, mother and father sit down together, hold hands and say, we're going to go and let our Christos space come in, and we're going to get guidance here to know what's right to do for the baby, for ourselves, for the universe, for the divine blueprint, and they would get the guidance they needed. And if a government was acting in a Christos way, it would respect every individual's right to put God first and to put their personal relationship with God first. We don't have a society like that right now. On this planet, everybody's trying to manipulate women that way. And it's been one of the worst ways that people have tried to control women and literally drain their life force energies by using them as breeding vessels. That has been going on for thousands of years. So if women are angry and don't want to have babies anymore, it's no surprise because the privilege has been abused. So there's a lot of issues surrounding that get into our gender roles, what has happened here on this planet, how sex has been abused, both through overuse of it and underuse of it, and making it bad and vile. So there's a lot of things connected with that. At some point, I'd love to do an ethics workshop. Christos Ethics. The book isn't down yet. I run my life by them, and they come through. Christos Ethics, once you realize what they are, which is the direct connection between you and Source through your Christos. You don't need a book once you can open that conduit, because you will act ethically by simply asking your higher parts to give you that guidance in every situation. And surrendering what you think is personal will. If you can't figure out for sure what something is, turn it over to your higher parts and trust and surrender there. Not surrender your will where I'm going to be powerless and I'm going to be a martyr. Surrender to a part of you that already knows the answer and the best one, and know that it will come to you and you will be given it. That's the most that can be said on ethics right now. At some point, there'll be a book. There'll be a translation of the Dorotura records on what basically, how do you live in a Christos society? What are the ethics of a Christos society? And if you saw those books and then looked at what's going on out there, your hair would stand on end. Because we are demonstrating such a severe reflection of the anti-Christos model in the way our governments are structured, the way our economics are structured, the way the whole thing is operating out there. And what's so sad is so much of it is done under lip service to Christianity or to spirituality. And lip service, if there's anything that really bugs me, I'm a very loving being and take to heart God allows. So I don't judge people or civilizations for what they do, but I can still get bugged, and I can get temporarily mad and let that energy run through. It's passion. It's not anger, it's passion. It's somebody who is acting in very anti-Christos ways, and at the same time arrogantly boasting about how much they have a right to pass judgment on other people because they're acting in spiritual integrity and other people aren't. Do you know how many religions teach you to be like that? That is lip service to Christianity, and it is an anti-Christian attitude. So when it comes to things like abortion, there are huge areas that a person has to find within themselves as far as making the decision. But when it comes to governments poking their nose into things where only the person and God have a business being, there's three people that should be involved with the decision on an abortion: the man and the woman and the incoming, all through the Christos. And if those three beings work it out together, they will find the right answer for that situation. So that's the stance on abortion. Now, off that subject and back onto body parts. Yeah, there is a relationship, vaguely. Okay.
So we've heard.
So we've heard. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now this, going through this, Kathara, level 1, 12 tree, contains the 12 primary Kathara centers and primary 15 Kathara lines. There are 15 lines that connect those 12 centers that correspond to various regions of the physical body and bioenergetic field, and which ground, anchor, consciousness into the framework of dimensionalization. So it's through that 12 tree grid and through the Kathara lines that run between those centers, which are energy flash lines, that our consciousness is anchored into our physical body. The Kathara level 2 crystal seals grid contains signets, those 3 signets. Remember, the signets go with the grid underneath it. The 12 tree grid, you have the first, second, and third Kathara centers, and they appear as 3 little dots within the first shield. Okay, so this is where Kathara level 1 grid interfaces with the next grid, where the shields are, where the energy mathematical pattern from Kathara level 1 grid, where the divine blueprint is fully encoded, come up to the next level of manifestation, into the shields grid. Okay? The signets are consolidated points of dimensional frequency. So the signets are replicas, actually, of the Kathara centers, what are called Kathara centers here. The signets hold the same mathematical patterns and are smaller versions of them that connect directly into the Kathara centers. Okay? They correspond. So say you have your telluric shield, which is your density 1 shield. That would have 3 signets in it, signet 1, 2, and 3, which are connected directly to Kathara centers 1, 2, and 3. So this is where your shields on the level 2 grid connect into the Kathara level 1 grid at the signets. The signets are consolidated points of dimensional frequency. The shields are 3-dimensional scalar wave disks that emanate from sets of 3 signets. So it's actually the signets that first come into manifestation and hold the pattern from the Kathara grid beneath it. And then from that pattern, the scalar waves expand out to become the shield. And this is where you begin to pick up your mathematical differentiation that makes you look different from the next person, from the next species. Okay? Now, this is a fun part where we get to see where all these things live in our body. Okay, the Kathara grid, level 1. Kathara center 1. This is page, what page is this, Letty? 64. Okay? These are the 12 Kathara centers, and these are the areas in the body that correspond directly to that grid. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. These are the core programming centers in the body. And when we are running a Maharic recoding process, which means the process of activating the Maharic shield in order to bring up D12 current to clear out the core template, you are going to be running D12 frequency up through this grid in the body. In your body first, and then in your client's body. You're going to do it by activating hand palm chakras, which we'll get to probably tomorrow in the morning. We're going to start with that. We'll get you up to triadic currents tonight, I hope. Okay. Now, the 12 Kathara centers, the first one is called the Earth Core. It's at the center of the Earth in Chakra 13. We also have a chakra down there called Chakra 13. Now, Chakra 13 connects to D13, which takes you into the primal light fields of density 5. So, Chakra 13 is where Kathara Center 1 is located. All right, this is down. Imagine that where you're standing, wherever you're standing on the planet, go halfway down through the planet into where the core of the Earth would be. And that is the point where your grid connects to, where this connects to the Earth's Kathara grid. That's the point that you're going to be bringing frequency up from when we activate the shields. You're going to literally use the breath. After you use the Hierophant to activate the shields, to open the conduits, you're going to use the breath to bring it up and put it in various areas, depending on what you're trying to do. Okay? The second one is called they have different names, and again, some of the names are really strange. I can't even pronounce this one. The Nuan Yun. In the male, it's in the prostrate gland. In the female, it's in the vagina. I think they call it the G-spot. I've heard that term thrown around, and that seems to be what this is obviously associated with running the Kundalini energies in the creative process as well as the creation of life process. These are the frequencies that control the part of the aspects of creation and sexuality and sex drive. Now, what's interesting is because we have distortions in Kathara Grid 2, 1, 2, and 3, in Kathara Grid 2, there's a whole bunch of wacky sexual deviation going on in our culture, not to mention a whole bunch of twisted ideas about what sex is supposed to be. Sex is a holy thing, and it's not holy just because it makes babies. It was not created just for the process of procreation. That's one sacred thing it can be used for. But when a male and female come together as souls, as oversouls, as avatars, in Christos love, the Kundalini currents that each of them run can be combined. And when they combined, they run a huge amount of current that can be used for tremendous healing or manifesting powers. This is why you have a lot of black magic cult type people that are using sex magic, because they're tapping into lower Antichristos teachings of how to use the Kundalini to amplify energy. They're using it for the wrong reasons. But the potential to use sexual energy in its divine Christos blueprint, it was supposed to be a joyous, beautiful way of sharing. What we see as body parts sharing with each other out here in 3D, remember, this is just a hologram. We get hung up on body parts here. This is a hologram. This is the illusion part. If you take that away, during the sexual act, what you see are two beautiful fields of light with two currents, main vertical currents of energy coming together. And those two currents of energy open to each other, and they form a beautiful figure 8 infinity sign. And the currents of both run through each. And the fields, the huva bodies and the auric levels expand. And there is an ability for one avatar and another to amplify their consciousness and bring in their rishi level together. It was meant to help you grow into becoming whole here. When you get to being an avatar where you're fully 12-strand activated, do avatars at that level have sex? Not in the same way. It becomes a moot point. Because after a while, the energy fields, you're in an intimate love relationship with everything around you. Every species, every rock, every tree, every molecule. And at that point, but it's usually, fortunately, the body's evolved to that point too, where you don't have the apparatus anymore to worry about anyway. So, gender just becomes a difference between whether you are primarily made out of part of cum units or part of chi units. Base magnetic or base electrical is really what male-female gender differentiation is in consciousness. And they are both equal And they are both important, and they both are required to have either, because it is a balance of polarities. So when because of the distortions right now that are in Kathara Center 2, because there are distortions in the planetary grid line 2, which is called an axiotonal line in the planetary body, and because there is a Kathara grid distortion in the planetary shields in the second Kathara Center in D2, we are all processing part of that confusion, sexual confusion. We get sexual identity confusion. We get power struggles between the currents in men and women that come out to be gender struggles. We get power struggles within ourselves between our own female and male aspects, because we all have both. We're both male and female. We're all androgynous beings, truthfully. We may be having one side of it amplified a little more, and that gives us what our physical form is. But we're androgynous. A soul doesn't worry about whether it's male or female. A soul can love male or female. That doesn't mean we all need to go and be bisexual. That's another way of, do you really need to use your life force currents this way? Some people do. It's not our job to pass judgment on them. However, there is a thing called sacred sex, that when we get these areas of the body, the first three-dimensional levels of the body straightened out, where there's not distortions being carried that give us distortions in our feeling body, and in our physical sensations, and in our conscious association of what we're doing, once that's cleared out, there's a whole new world of what relationship means. A lot of people think, and there's a distortion in the New Age movement, that everything's free love, right? That means go and sleep with everything in eternity and don't worry about it. Now, who might benefit from this? The answer to that question lies in what happens to the DNA template during the act of sex and orgasm. Something happens to the DNA template. When the primal life force currents begin to activate in the bodies, they begin to activate in the DNA templates. A combining of codes begins to happen temporarily. One of the best ways to possess somebody's body, if you're a dark avatar wanting to come in, is to get yourself into a human body and to seduce the other person into orgasm. This is why there's this whole weird thing happening with male-female orgasm issues. In the ancient days, the Anunnaki used to use human women, and they would forcefully drive them to orgasm to make them open their DNA so they could do two things. One, impregnate them with Anunnaki fetuses. Two, so they could give them overlays, reversed matrix overlays in their DNA template. So women adopted a survival pattern. We won't have an orgasm if you kill us. And we're still living it. Even when we find somebody that we know is the love of our life and we really, really wish we had more of a sexual orientation. A long time ago, we got so disgusted with being used and abused, and we realized we were being used as the vessels through which an army of little nasties would be created in order to take over the planet. We decided that no way. You can do anything to me. You know what people, archetypes, embody this for us in our cultures. You look at people who turn to women, who turn to prostitution. They have gotten an attitude with it. I'm going to control this process. You're going to use me, huh? Well, I can do that back. And you know what? I can fake it, and you'll think I mean it. You'll think you got me, but you don't. We learn these attitudes. We learn them in the ancient times. The knowledge is coming through from those time vectors when we were abused. Men have had similar issues. When the Anunnaki races actually came here physically, they were larger than the humans at that time. I mean, larger physically. And they would try to seduce the human women away from their male counterparts. And they would use their physical prowess to do it. So men have adopted this not enoughness feeling very often about their own sexuality, and they often spend a great deal of their lives trying to fix that, trying to prove to themselves that they are enough, sometimes feeling so much that they're not enough that they get a real big ego concept and everything has to be thought like they think, with their lower chakras first. All of these distortions have come up from the events that are taking place in the other time vectors, that are taking place right now. So as we begin the healing process of these lower Kathara centers, which are connected to DNA strands 1, 2, and 3. All sorts of issues come up in our lives we find all sorts of weird emotional feelings coming up. There may be a sense in women of being horribly violated. There may be a huge anger in men of being one-upped to the point where why even show up, because you were just going to get flattened by these big pretty guys from the sky who were coming, to take your females away from you. There was trickery used to seduce the females away from the men, and then the men were often killed just to get rid of them, because what was done here was a forced hybridization experiment with fallen angelic races, where they wanted the human gene code so they could get into the human bodies because of its accelerated potentials to interface with the planetary grids. So there's a lot of healing that needs to take place here. If we look at the craziness in our global societies, we have every extreme you can imagine here. We have people that are celibate and wouldn't be touched if it was God himself came down, because they're convinced that sex is bad. You have people doing the other thing, free love, let's be swingers. Let's go sleep with everything because it feels good. If it feels good, do it. Well, there used to be some truth to if it feels good, do it. Before our emotional bodies got twisted to the point where our emotional bodies are connected to strand 2, or connected to Kathara center 2. There's a part of ourself that runs there that makes things feel good that aren't good for us. So you can't just trust the emotional nature unless it's combined with the Christos frequency coming in, which will straighten it out and let you know what you really feel about something. So your biology is not dragging you all over the planet into relationships that are causing you harm. Okay? The seduction tool to harm you, because what will happen is if it can get you to have an orgasm on D4 in your astral body, that will filter down from here, from your 4th Kathara center. That program will be entered there. It'll go into 3, 2, and 1, and it'll anchor down in the physical body. So it's being used as a way to implant right now and to really mess with people right now. Now, in other times, astral sex was no different than physical sex. If it's used in the right way, it's a way that you can, well, let's say that your twin and your husband, the person you love more than anything in the world, that you have a wonderful relationship with, happens to be on another planet for a tour of duty because he's working. And you're down here and you really miss each other. Well, you just meet in the middle. We used to use it that way. These days, it's dangerous because it's being used as a tool to seduce people into opening their biofields on the astral level, which is the D4 level. Same little trick is being used by telling people, just open your heart. Those words are telling you to open your heart chakra, which is connected to your astral field. Something is telling you to just open your heart without running your Maharic seal is asking you to open yourself up so they can infiltrate your biofield at the D4 level. So right now, it's important, and there's a lot of people, there are a lot of women especially. I've heard this from hundreds of people at this point. They have been approached in the astral, often first in the dream state or during a meditation, by a being that's lovely and wonderful and beautiful and makes them feel like they just want to melt. And it's just like Adonis walked out of the ancient Greek mythology and just came and laid himself at your feet. Everything you could possibly imagine that would be wonderful to you. They have the ability, the fallen angelics have the ability to read your fields. They know where your buttons are, what your ideal would be. And right now, that's being used as a tool, and it's not just being used on women. There's also a number of men, but men tend to talk about it less, from what I've met, where they have been approached by very beautiful angels, or ETs, they'll call themselves sometimes. Particularly the Palladians, they love to do this. Palladians. That's a wonderful word that so many of us in the New Age movement have come to associate with light and love and Christos development and lip service. The Palladian matrix, we will get into in the Templar workshop more, but they are a group of Anunnaki that have a vested interest in getting into human bodies right now. And the fastest and best way to do it is to grab them in the astral, because we don't realize we have that astral there yet. And the few of us that realize it's there somewhere don't realize what it is yet. We don't realize there's really a part of our body there, that really you are engaging in something there, and what you're engaging in there is getting coded into your body down here. It's a way of being hijacked. So right now, we've been, the warning was put out by the guardian races that right now, though there's wonderful things in the future that can be explored with this potential, as far as it's not a bad thing in and of itself, Okay, having, romance in the astral on D4, or romance in D5, or romance in D7, or wherever. Romance is wonderful if it's done in a Christos imprint. But right now, because it's a tactic being used to trick us, we're being asked to save any kind of our interactions that way for 3D. If you can't meet the person here in 3D and make sure you feel good with that person really in 3D, then just tell them that you love them dearly and you want to be celibate there. And see if they still love you. Then they might try to get you to drink something instead. If you have visions where things come to you and hand you a cup, drink this. Frequency, the cup, the liquid are symbols. They're trying to get you to ingest frequency from them. This can be very, very dangerous. You might as well have sex with them. Because what they're trying to do is encode you mathematically with programs that affect your Kathara grid. So there are things that are happening right now in the world that people don't realize. I mean, it's so wonderful to discover you have an astral lover, especially if you've been like striking out here for 20 years. Where you're just, it's like no matter what you do here, you have a great relationship lasts 4 weeks and then you can't stand each other, and no matter what you do, it falls apart. Or you had a 20-year relationship where you're getting, where you don't even know who you are by the time you get out of it because you lost so much of yourself because the other one was sucking energy off you. At this point, astral sex looks good because at least you can make them go away if you want them to, right? Or you can call them in when you need them and they really come. But it's a trick right now that's being used that we can go higher. If we can realize that any kind of sexuality is really an energy exchange that's taking place, that opens your core template temporarily to receive what the other person has. If the other person is indeed a pure being, that can be good for you. It can actually help to accelerate your own gene code. Now, there have been times in the evolution of our race, I'll get to 2 questions, I'll get to them in a second. There are times in the evolution of our race when these tactics have been used by guardian races, but with full open explanation of what was taking place in order to do bioregenesis for some of the fallen races to help them pick up in the most rapid way possible the new codes, the higher Christos codes in their DNA template. Unfortunately, since 22,000, no, it was actually before that, it was 208,216 BC. In that particular, there's a series of events that took place back there where literally the reason why the D12 current couldn't run on this planet after that period was because there was a whole race of guardians, avatars. They had 6-strand activation all the time, and they could turn on literally their ascended master consciousness when needed. There was a group of other beings that were out of the draconian matrix. It was called the Omicron draconian matrix. I can't talk, my lips are getting tired. We lost our ability here to run D12 frequency because of sex. Because the group of people who were the guardians here, who were very sweet and loving, and horribly naive and trusting to a fault. They knew soft love, but they didn't know tough love. And they never thought that anybody could abuse some of the most sacred things in the world to actually put one over on you and steal your energy and your planet out from under you. There was a race of beings that had entered the Emerald Covenant from the Omicron draconian matrix. And they said, we want to, we're going to be good now. We'd like to do bioregenesis so we can regenerate our 12-strand pattern so we can become Christos beings like you. And they were allowed to come onto the planet and to adopt a human type form. But the DNA in that human type form had a long way to go. It had the matrix of human type codes, but running in reverse mathematical sequence. It's called a reverse matrix. And that is an anti-Christos matrix. And over evolution, and by combining, there were going to be a race line made that would slowly purge out those distortions so those souls could incarnate through a human form. Well, they gave lip service to wanting to do the Emerald Covenant, and for about 100 years they got their people on planet, draconian souls in human type bodies, and the founders' races were trying to make sure, hoping this experiment went well. They were trying to help the draconian matrix to get back into the Christos pattern. What they didn't calculate was how naive avatars could be when they were down here. Because at first, there were only selective marriages allowed. Because if you got a person who had higher frequency activated, even if it's on a reverse current, than the person that you were making love with at the time, even if you had an avatar here and only an oversoul here, but the avatar only had its own DNA activated to strand 6, and this one amped it up to strand 9, this code would overpower the other, and that would be the imprint that went into the other person's DNA. It took them about 50 years of intermarriages and breaking the rules by not running the Maharic seal every time they were going to engage in intimacy. They convinced their angelic human partners that there was too much frequency in the field and it made copulation uncomfortable for them. So please don't run the seal right now. You have enough D12 frequency in your field. Because before, nobody, avatars didn't combine their fields without first opening the Maharata current. That was just a natural part of it. You brought the Christos in to any coupling. And because there was a whole collective of the people who ran the round tables, which are the Stargate control grids, who allowed their DNA to be compromised, and it wasn't realized until it was too late that they had literally had their templates reversed. They began to run reverse codes into the planetary grids during a stellar activation cycle, or a Stargate cycle. And that broke the link to the Christos field in the planetary grids. We're still paying for that now. What we're fixing now on the planetary level, and what each of us are processing a piece of, has to do with that time and that decision. And we're still stumbling around trying to figure out what's the right way to have an intimate relationship where the power is balanced and it's supposed to be this loving, wonderful thing. So there's a lot to the sexual issue. And I won't go any further with that in this one. If I answer questions on this one, we're going to be here till tomorrow morning talking about sex. And I know that, we really need more teachings on things we have to deal with every day. Because there are things that you can do that will help you tremendously. Run your Maharic seal, for instance. When we learn to do this, which we're going to do the beginnings of this tonight. When you learn to run your Maharic seal, you're temporarily, manually activating what would normally be activated permanently and all the time if your 12-strand DNA was activated. You're bringing in a pillar of light around your fields, and it creates a buffer of D12 frequency around your DNA template, which means if you couple with someone, you will give them a gift of a D12 charge that either they'll be able to receive or they won't. But whatever comes from them, you will receive it only if it's in the right sequence of the Christos sequence. So you'll protect your own fields that way. That applies to the astral level as well, but there are more games being played there, and I wouldn't take it on. I mean, I remember lifetimes where I didn't marry anybody in the physical, and I just had my partner hanging around with me in the astral, and we left it at that. This isn't the time frame to do that. So anyway, my personal opinion, I would be advised anybody to just cool the astral relationships if you got them going. Tell them, I'll be your friend and I love you dearly, but we're going to be platonic now. This is something I need to do for me and my Christos. And if they have a problem with that, you might want to question their motives in the first place. Okay, real quick, yes?
This is not a sex question. This information is possible in the dream states. So if you go to sleep and somebody, can they infiltrate there as well? How do you protect yourself?
Yes. The drama we're in the middle of right now, everything becomes dangerous if you don't know how to run your D12 frequency. If you know how to run your D12 frequency, you don't have to be afraid of any of it. Because your Maharata current will create natural protection if you run enough of it. Critical mass of it is important. That's why you need to use the techniques and build with them and run more and more of them. And I'm going to go through into these at these points so we can get there. I'd like to at least have you to be able to activate your Maharic seal tonight before you go so you can begin running that current. All right? Okay. Oh, I also, too, want to point out, we do have